Welcome to the Heart of Herbs Herbal School podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of herbal medicine and natural healing. I'm your host, Demetria Clark, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this journey of discovery. At Heart of Herbs Herbal School, we're passionate about empowering individuals to harness the power of plants for health and wellness. Through our podcast, we'll dive into topics ranging from herbal materia medicas, clinical herbalism, sharing insights, interviews, tips, and wisdom to inspire and educate our listeners.
There it is.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
All right. So, hi, this is Demetria Clark with the Heart of Herbs Herbal School podcast. And today we're talking to Amelia South. And Amelia is going to tell us all about all the wonderful things that she does. And I really want you to take an opportunity to get your pens and your pencils and start taking notes, because we're going to have so much great information for you. And also, if you're in New England and you want to take classes about foraging and wildcrafting, this is your go-to source. So, Amelia, let everyone know how wonderful you are, please.
Yay! Hi, I'm Amelia South. I am a professional foraging instructor and herbalist. My farm is Black Sun Farm in Eastern Connecticut, which doesn't mean a lot.
Where do we find that online?
If you go to blacksunfarmct.com, that's my main website. I have several websites. So one's for my farm, and that's got links for everything, like all of my podcast interviews and all that stuff. But also I teach classes. I teach classes online too, because the stuff that grows in New England basically grows all over the entire northeastern United States. So there's like millions of people that live in this general huge area where all the stuff that I teach is totally relatable and viable for your area. So that website is herbalremediesbyamelia.com. That's all my online classes and things. It's not just foraging. I teach all kinds of cool stuff because I basically made a bunch of online classes teaching you everything I know about
awesome.
everything. And so that's there. I'm still making other classes. I've got one coming up with a friend of mine about healing depression through food and diet and herbs and things like that. It's mostly through food. So that's going to be coming up soon. And I also I sell some products. It's not a huge list, but a few products. I'm getting all my licensing together to make a larger batches of things more productively, but that's at blacksunfarmshop.com. So blacksunfarmct.com is the main website. You can find everything there.
Okay,
and
cool.
That's me. I'm on TikTok. I'm at the original Mailchan on TikTok. And that's where a lot of people know me from. On Facebook, Black Sun Farm CT. On Instagram, Black Sun Farm. I think Black Sun Farm on YouTube. But yeah, all the links are on my website. And I teach food as medicine. I teach about gut health. I teach foraging for wild food and wild medicinals. I do teach some herbal medicine making classes. I do reference this because I went to Heart of Herbs Herbal School. So I tell people are like, "Oh, where did you go to school?" I'm like, "I went here." And I've taken other classes with some other schools and stuff, but like my main course that I did was through you guys here. So yeah, I definitely tell everybody about that.
Well, thanks.
I
love. I love the other stuff you do too. And I think it's important that you mentioned that, you've got to get your education from more than one source. Like, people will be like, well, I don't want to because I've already done this. And it's like, what I say is like 1,000,000% different than someone else.
Oh, yeah.
The way it's delivered, I'm really boring and practical. Like some people are really sexy and exciting. That's not me. I'll tell you how to get to the grit of it all.
Well, there's some people that get into so much complicated stuff. And it's like, I know phytochemistry is not my strong suit. I know what phytochemistry is, but I am well aware that I should be taking a phytochemistry class at some point, because most of the time I feel like I'm more of an intuitive herbalist where I've been doing it so long. When you're working with this stuff so long with your own two hands and you're working with the plants and everything, you just get a feel that, and you've used all this medicine on yourself or on your family, and you've done this for so long, you start going like, well, all right, I know I need this herb. I know I need this herb. I know how to mix them together. I know what ratios I want. And I judge a lot of that. plus based on whatever I can find, because I'll be on, I do TikTok live frequently. I skipped today because I just burnt out, but I do that frequently, and people ask me a lot, like, what do you think about soursop leaves? And I'm a bioregional herbalist. Like 99.9% of everything that I work with is stuff I either grow myself or I go out in the woods and I forage myself. So if you can't find it here in New England, it's probably not something that I'm really familiar with or that I work with on anything like a regular basis. And so when somebody says, what do you think about soursop for cancer? I'm like, I don't know, because I don't grow soursop because it grows in Jamaica.
Yeah, right.
So like, if you want help with dealing with cancer, I can tell you what I would do, but it's going to be based on what we have available in this region. And a big part of that, honestly, is because of what happened during COVID. If you remember, during COVID, everybody wanted to learn herbalism during COVID. Everybody wanted to learn natural healing during COVID. Everybody became an herbalist during COVID. I started before that, thank God. But not much for like 2018 instead of 2020. So when that whole global crisis hit, and the thing is, you got to remember, it could happen again. Something like that, even if it's not the same disease or whatever, could happen again. And if that does happen again and shuts down the economy, or if it shuts down a lot of transportation or whatever, we're screwed. Because if you remember, during that time, you tried to go online and order some herbs. They were sold out of absolutely everything.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely everything. So if you
couldn't
not
even get canning jars, right?
Exactly. I know. I invested
jam again, right?
I invested in Ball Canning Corporation during COVID because of how crazy it was.
And they're made in America, so shouldn't be anything funky in the glass, right?
It's just like, it's so critically important to know and be familiar with the plants that you have, whether that's in your own backyard, or if you can go to a state park or a town park or someplace that they don't spray.
Yard.
Your neighbor's yard. Yeah. As long as your neighbors aren't spraying pesticides all over the place, it's good. Anywhere you can go that they're not using pesticides.
Absolutely.
You want to get familiar with whatever you're seeing. Start outside your own backyard if you have a backyard.
I always tell people, what's in your yard, what's in your spice rack, what's in your medicine chest. Like, what do you have in your little environment?
Exactly.
My kids used to joke that during the zombie apocalypse, because I can deliver babies and I know about herbalism, that they'll keep me around.
Everybody says that too. They say they want me on their team.
They don't run a zombie probably, but they'll protect me.
We were talking. I just taught a foraging walk on Saturday, and I actually co-taught it with a friend of mine that teaches foraging on the other side of Connecticut. We got together and taught a foraging class together. And I said, people always say, "Oh, I want you on my team when the apocalypse happens, and when this collapses and that collapses, I want you." And I'm like, listen, if I find there's not as much wild food as you think there is, like, all the time. You have to kind of collect it
too.
It's very exactly. When I find it, I'm keeping it for myself. I'm not sharing it.
I'm not making you a pod.
I'm not going to sit
up blackberries.
Exactly. I'm not cracking hickory nuts for 17 hours to feed you. I'm cracking them to feed me.
Exactly right.
So it is labor intensive, but things, I made a video about that not too long ago, specifically about hickory nuts, because hickory nuts are edible and they're freaking delicious. Hickory nuts are they're one of the tastiest nuts you'll ever you'll ever eat in your life. And a lot of, like, hundreds of thousands of people have no idea. They either don't know what a hickory even is, or they didn't know you could eat it because it's not a commercially available nut. And the reason it's not a commercially available nut is because it's a huge pain in the butt to crack it.
Oh,
like, it's a lot of work.
They're like tight.
Well, it's so tight. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can crack a walnut, and even though, like, walnuts are a pain in the butt too, like, hickories are 10 times worse. You need that little curvy nut pick thing that comes in a nut picking kit. You have to have that for hickories. Otherwise, you're sitting there with a stick and a toothpick and you're trying to get it all out. And my boyfriend watched me cracking hickory nuts like a month or so ago, and he's going, "You're insane. I don't know why you would do that." And I said, "Because they're delicious. They're awesome. They're so good." And then there's the other part that you have to think of when you're doing that. So you're doing something with your hands. You don't really have to think. You can kind of let your mind wander. You can let your mind reset itself, whatever you want to do. You could listen to a podcast or listen to music, or you could just
like shelling peas on the
exactly.
You know?
That same kind of repetitive motion with your hands, it resets your body. And then in addition to that, somebody else mentioned this on that video. They said you're mindful. You're thinking about what you're eating because it's so labor intensive to be getting the nut out of that shell.
Mhm.
It's helping you control the amount you're eating. So
Yeah.
like if you get a giant bag of nuts somewhere, you're going to end up eating handful after handful because they're delicious, they're roasted, they're salted, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Even if they're just raw nuts, it's so easy to stick your hand in a bag of them and eat a whole handful. With
Yeah.
hickory nuts, you're sitting there for like an hour before you get a handful of them. So you're like, it's not that it's not feeding you, because it's totally feeding you and it's delicious, but it's high calorie and
Mhm.
fat, and it's ridiculously good for you. There's all kinds of like omega-6 and omega-3, all good
Yeah.
stuff in hickories, but you're controlling like how much you're willing and able to put into your body, that food. When you're the same thing when you're growing it yourself or when you're hunting it
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah. You know
you're
the work that's involved. My
slow
husband
slow
was just
food.
saying that about pistachios. He said, "Don't buy me unshelled ones ever again." I ate like
Yeah, because you
three
eat
cups
10
of them
times
at
as
once. Like
much.
he's sitting there.
It's
He's
so
like,
easy. And so many
yeah,
people think that. They're like, well, why would I want to put all that work into that? I can just go to
yeah.
Walmart and buy a bag of them. And I'm like, well,
Hmm.
because number one, you're getting a much higher nutritional value
Oh yeah, so
from this
much better for
wild
you.
food. Even if you get, like, I have 4 black walnut trees in my yard. And every year I pick up every year that they fall, because they skip a year sometimes. But
Yeah,
anyway, I get
they've
tons and
got a
tons.
lot of attitude.
Exactly. Yeah. Black walnuts are a pain, and they're horrible to shell. I have a
Oh
special
yeah.
cracker just for cracking my black walnuts, and it takes hours. I haven't had time. I've still got a giant box of black walnuts from last October. I have not had time to crack because all winter I was just busting my butt building my business and stuff. I'm honestly hoping that enough people, buy my stuff in my classes that I can take like a month off and just crack all my walnuts, because that's how long it's going to take to crack them all. I still have half a
I'm
bag of
still
hickory.
trying to schedule the month off. So if you tell me how you do it,
I
let
will
me
never ever
know.
end up scheduling a month. I have a farm. I'm never going to be able to do that. I have ducklings and chicks. There's chicks right over here behind me, and on the other side of the room there's ducklings.
Oh,
So
we have ducks and chicks too, and geese.
yeah, I'm good. I should be snuggling one right now, but it would be bothersome for the podcast. Anyway,
Well, I don't think we should really care about what people
yeah,
are
everybody,
bothered by. You either listen or you don't.
yeah. So, but anyway, that's the point I'm talking. The wild food is like, I think it's something like 50 or 60% more nutritious than cultivated food. Even the regenerative agriculture is fantastic, and I practice that here on my farm.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a tiny farm, but um, the wild food, and this is the way I like to explain it to people. That food source, that plant, put itself wherever it put itself for a reason. It
Yeah.
decided to grow in that spot because that spot had exactly of soil, had exactly what that plant wanted or needed to grow. Whereas no matter, even even the most regenerative, sustainable, amazing organic garden that you can grow, you're going to be growing vegetable seeds that have been, cultivated over years. Even heirloom varieties, they've still been
Yeah. Yeah.
cultivated by humans for
They're
eating.
millions of
And
years old.
yeah, but they still, like, you're putting that seed into this piece of soil on purpose, and you need to make sure, you as the human have to make sure that you're giving that area, that plot of soil, enough compost or vitamins or fertilizer, whatever, so that plant can grow. Where the wild plants are just like, I'm going to stick myself here, I'm going to stick myself there because I like, and then they go crazy. That's
Mm-hmm.
why, like, a lot of times my vegetable garden ends up looking more like an herb garden by the end of the season, because hey, red clover put itself here, and I run around and I eat red clover all summer.
Yeah.
Or the yellow dock put itself there. I'm just going to go ahead and harvest that at the end of the year. I might as well.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, they pop up, and I just let them go. So I'm a little bit of a crazy, like, all the other farmers think I'm nuts.
Well, we are very open to volunteers too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I will go out there and weed because certain things have to be, get
Yeah.
babied a little bit. You can't let the weeds get too crazy around your pepper plants if you want to have peppers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Peppers can be moody.
yeah, yeah. And but at the same time, I had a wild tomato type variety. So Solanum nigrum. Have you
Mm-hmm.
seen Solanum nigrum? Yeah. A lot of people freak out because they think Solanum nigrum is black nightshade. Black
Mm-hmm.
nightshade isn't as common as you think it is. like
Yeah. Yeah.
like belladonna, black nightshade, it's not as common, and people freak out. So every year I find myself either talking about it or making a dozen videos about making, just like showing, look, this is Solanum nigrum. You can eat the greens and you can eat the berries, and they come in like little black clusters of black berries. Whereas belladonna or, black nightshade is one little berry with these really weird, long, curvy, not a calyx. Maybe it is a calyx. The little spot at the top of a tomato. They come out really wide, and they're one little berry, and that's black, and it's freaky. And if you find that, that's black nightshade. Don't play with it. I don't think it's going to kill you if you touch it, but just don't eat it. Yeah. But Solanum nigrum looks similar, and there's little clusters of blackberries. They're delicious. Like I was picking those and canning them with my regular tomatoes last year. So I just threw them all in with everything. They're delicious. They're super sweet. They're just really tiny. So there's no point in really cultivating a teeny weeny little thing. But it's a wild food, and it shows up in my garden every year, whether I like it or not. And I just leave it because, hey, free food, right?
Yeah, no, totally right. I mean, I figure we have a child who bought a house that came with a pig. And so he decided to keep the pig.
Nice.
And I guess he's like when he got the house, it was like the pig was probably about 100 pounds underweight, and he's not castrated. So he was never going to be food. So we really had to help boost him. And so there's really no waste from our garden anymore.
I bet. Yeah.
The pig or whatever other animal, and
exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy because if you have that connection, you can make those connections. You can find things to feed other things in your land.
Even when you just get a few chickens, those chickens are going to eat all the scraps from whatever you've got. If you go to a restaurant and you don't finish your restaurant food, throw it to your chickens and they turn it into eggs. I mean, I don't really go to restaurants much anymore, but the chickens get a lot of scraps, and the ducks, they all go through the scraps, and then they scratch it all up and they add their poop, and then the next year you can put that in the garden, and it's free fertilizer for your garden.
We have a huge compost pile that my husband moves around with the tractor.
Oh,
He puts everything in there, right?
Yeah.
And then the chickens see him go to the compost, and they go bananas.
The Heart of Herbs Herbal School Podcast.
Bananas.
I bet, yeah. I bet, yeah.
And then he lets them work for it. It's really funny, but
absolutely.
No, it's great because there are so many. When you start thinking about foraging and wild foods, you can make a lot more connections with healing, the planet, the way you use things. It's fabulous. I mean, I think the thing is that people, unfortunately, at times make these trendy activities.
Yeah.
And then they go and they just like completely deplete an area because they want to
yeah.
And so how do you address responsibility with your students?
So there are the first thing I start teaching people about is if you're just getting started with foraging, look for plants that you're going to find in huge abundance. So usually one of the easiest thing to start with is whatever plant is invasive in your area. And if you're not around here, like where I am, you can just go Google invasive plants and your zip code, and a list of 10 or 15 probably crazy invasive plants are going to come up. So things like garlic mustard, Japanese knotweed, Rosa multiflora. There's things I know in the South they've got kudzu everywhere, and holy crap, kudzu's evil. So
it's at almost a foot a day in some places.
Yeah. Japanese knotweed does almost the same thing. It's super bad. So if you start off with the invasive stuff, especially in person, you go to a conservation area, I would be willing to bet if you went to a national park, there's always going to be signs saying, please don't touch the vegetation, don't feed the bears, don't blah, 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 because they want to maintain the natural park. If you go to a national park, I guarantee you, if you start picking garlic mustard, they're not going to complain. They're hiring people to go and pick that garlic mustard or whatever other crazy invasive thing. If it's full of mugwort and you go I'm going to clip a little bit of mugwort, I don't think anybody's going to yell at you because it's so invasive, in all of these places. They actually they hire crews of people to go in there and rip it out. I guess they could make the argument, well, what if you're not ripping it out correctly? But I don't know how you can rip a plant out incorrectly. So,
well, the goats do if we don't have anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So if you're worried about sustainability, you can always start with the invasive plants, and there's a lot of invasive plants in this country right now.
Yeah, right.
Because so many things. I mean, there's things that were brought over from Europe 400 years ago that are now they're naturalized, so they're not native, but they're naturalized, and they've like become a part of the landscape, like dandelions or some of the varieties of plantain. Grow absolutely everywhere, and you can find them. And those are naturalized plants that even the most of the native cultures have just accepted as, hey, you know what? This is actually a pretty cool plant. We're just going to eat it or work with it medicinal, whatever, because it works. It's a nice plant. But there's other things like Japanese barberry is highly invasive, at least here in New England, and it was brought
That's one
over
of those plants that they plant, around every like strip mall, right?
People
around
plant that on
outside
purpose.
of a fast food restaurant,
and then people like me go in the woods and there's like a million of them.
Is invasive, and
so that kind of thing. Like they brought it over because it was pretty, and now it took over. So if you can find medicinal, uses for that plant, like barberry roots, if you're brave enough to dig up a barberry, because the thorns on it are just horrible. But barberry root is super high in berberine, same as golden seal. Barberry root is so similar to golden seal, and golden seal is way endangered and not sustainable, but you can go out in the woods and dig up a crap load of barberry and get the same medicinal components for free. So, do that if you want that component. If you're looking for that golden seal type thing, just go get some barberry, and it's pretty much the same thing. So in a sustainable way, you might as well harvest the wild invasive plants. So that's a good way to do it. If you're just getting you don't know what you're doing at all in any way, shape, or form, number one, I can help you with that. So follow me on social media or check out some of my classes or my email list or whatever. But number two, just step outside your backyard. Even if you live in a city, walk a block and just pay attention. Notice whatever weeds are in the sidewalk. Or you know how a lot of cities, they'll plant a tree every 20 feet or something like that. So
we need to make up for paving everything else over.
Exactly, yeah. And look at the little circle or square that tree is planted in and see what little weeds are popping up in there, because there's always going to be opportunistic weeds popping up in the tiniest of places. Like sometimes weeds will grow in the bark of a tree even.
And a stone wall.
Exactly. Oh, I took a picture of that. I found some greater celandine and garlic mustard growing in a vertical stone wall. And the tiniest bit of a crack.
Greater celandine's really good at finding a place to grow.
Oh my gosh, that stuff's becoming really invasive. Yeah, it's crazy up here. So, but you're almost guaranteed to find dandelions somewhere. The problem is in a city, you do have to worry about whether they're spraying them. So if they're trying to spray dandelions, or you go to a city park, you don't want to be foraging in a place where people are letting their dogs pee and poop all over the place.
So why not? Come on.
Yeah. I will tell you, at least once a month, somebody online asks me, I bet a dog peed on that. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm done fighting with you people.
I'm sure.
Because I'm not smart enough to go harvest things from where a dog doesn't pee. But, just use your common sense judgments. Don't forage in a dog park. Forage from places.
Nobody ever worries about possum pee and
or cat pee even
deer pee.
Well, the funniest thing about that is do you have any idea how many things have probably peed on the vegetables that are in the grocery store? So many. Even whether humans are urinating nearby or animals are crawling on them, or it's a certain amount of rat feces is okay to be in your food. So many things have touched those vegetables. I'm just trying to encourage people.
It's true, but I mean, it's true. People
they
really
just don't realize it.
On the one thing.
Exactly. Well, you picked that up and didn't wash it. Aren't you worried you're going to get sick? And I'm like, no. The worst thing that has ever happened to somebody like me that's a forager, I will, if you're going to be a forager, if you're going to be foraging things on a regular basis and you get braver and braver and you're crazy like me and you just start going like, I'm going to pick this leaf and eat it. I don't care about washing it, whatever. You might want to consider doing a natural parasite cleanse once or twice a year. And I do that myself because I guarantee somewhere along the lines, I've probably eaten a slug and not known it. And slugs often carry parasites. So that's, and it's not like.
And I'm sure you never ever walk around barefoot in places in the
kidding
farm
me?
where you probably shouldn't be.
I'm barefoot right now. I'm barefoot.
Me too.
I'm
too. I have a grown-up
10 months out
shirt
of the
on
year.
and my pajamas for bottoms.
Yes.
I came home from doing the repairs this morning and said,
No,
you know what? I'll put my Jimmy Joos on.
That's another thing people like to pick on me for, but I hike barefoot. I hike barefoot. I'm barefoot all the time. Like from March through mid-November, at least, I'm barefoot. So, as much as possible. And I do go, I put shoes on to go to the grocery store and stuff because I don't want to get arrested or anything, but being barefoot on the ground.
Other people's grody-ness. The ground's cool.
That too, because other people step in dog poo and I don't want to step in dog poo. I've stepped in dog poo before. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you have dogs, you probably are.
I don't have dogs, but it's when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had dogs and I accidentally stepped in dog poo barefoot and it was like the worst experience ever. So I am very glad that I'm careful where I step. That's one thing about hiking barefoot. People are like, how can you do that? How can you do that? And I'm like, when you start hiking barefoot, like you start off easing into it, you're going with flip-flops or whatever. And then you just finally, you take the plunge, you start going barefoot. And I don't go hiking. I'm not climbing mountains in New England. Like there's some places that are harder than others, but you honestly, with bare feet, you get a better grip on the stones. You get a better grip on the ground.
I used to run barefoot in the woods.
Yeah, so it
was more trails through.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I go on trails, and you do have to be careful where you put your feet. So you're looking at the ground a little bit more often, and you're careful where you place your feet because I'll tell you, I've stepped on thorns, I've stepped on a pointy rock. It's not fun. So you have to be more mindful of where you're placing your feet, and you get the hang of it really pretty quickly. But it also forces you to move your body a little bit more slowly. So you are a little bit more deliberate about your leg movements. And I've noticed that when I started at the beginning of last year hiking barefoot, and I noticed that every time I take a hike, I've got more of a workout than I used to. Because I used to be just in sneakers and I bang, bang, boom, I'm right through. But now I'm careful. I have to think about where I'm putting my feet and I have to move a little bit more slowly. So it exercises your legs, the whole leg muscle even more. And it's exercising your brain. So, it's a great thing to do. Plus
you probably also have less injury.
Because you're for the most part
mindful, less twisting knees and stuff like that because you're more mindful about how you're stepping.
Exactly.
Not foot,
no, because I've stepped on a thorn and not realized it and go, shit. I'm sorry. Shouldn't be swearing.
No, it's fine. We're all grown-ups here.
Yeah, I totally swear when I step on a thorn, it's not good. And in my backyard, I stepped on a bee twice last year.
Okay.
And it's not fun. So I'm allergic to bees. I'm not allergic to the point of complete anaphylaxis where I'm going to stop breathing and die. But I'm allergic enough that like it kind of makes me woozy and a little bit faint. So every time I've stepped on a bee or come close to it, I immediately go grab some stinging nettle tincture because that helps offset the allergy reaction. And while I'm limping back to the house, I grab some plantain because I just chew that up, put it right on it. And, plantain takes care of the pain of that bee sting within like 2 minutes or something like that. It's really nice. Absolutely. So, that's foraging right there though.
There you go.
You have to know what you can grab. Yeah.
Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is something that you would like people to know about you as a person?
Oh gosh.
Like,
other than
what
what
is
I already
something
said.
so I'm always like, I'm super practical. Like
I'm pretty practical, but I'm also, when I say I'm a dirty hippie, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the way that most people, the majority of people that I meet, don't go barefoot because they're afraid to go barefoot, or they don't eat wild plants because they're afraid to eat wild plants.
So you're a fearless hippie.
I feel like I was just actually writing about this morning. I think there's a difference between being afraid of nature and respecting nature. And I respect, and I've been building a relationship with the nature around me. I talk with trees, and some people think I'm nuts for that, and some people think that's the coolest thing ever, because you can actually communicate with the plants on a certain level. It's for me, and this is probably, I'm like a super young at this, for those that might know better, but it's way easier to talk with a tree than it is to talk with just like a garden plant for me. Like I feel like trees are closer to humans for whatever reason. Like you can get up and you can hug a tree just like you're hugging, your spouse or hugging
And they
someone
do
you
all
love.
communicate. We know
Yeah,
that they
communicate
with each other. So like
Exactly.
when they're giving us advice, we can
Exactly.
kind of feel like
you can
trust
totally
it because they got millions of people giving them.
exactly.
Hey, no, tell her this, man.
And then you've got the plants that are, even if they're in your garden or they're in the yard, there's like 10,000 different plants, and some of them hate each other, and there's probably a little bit more infighting. It's like, the trees are. I talk with trees, and I'm not exactly fearless, because I would never eat something that I didn't recognize or that I didn't think I recognized.
There's a difference between fearless and stupid.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Like, what's a good way to explain that to people? Because so many people come to me and say, how do you get over being afraid to try this wild plant or try eating this mushroom that you just found? People are absolutely terrified that they're going to poison themselves. And that's where, taking a class or getting some kind of in-person instruction is good. Getting, even if it's online, as long as there's like really detailed videos or really, really detailed pictures, you can be like, all right, I'm pretty sure. You can also join. There's a lot of Facebook groups and things where you can join. Or like I've got a membership right now. People joined so they can say, okay, this person's an expert, and they're going to be giving me the go ahead. Like, yes, this is definitely this plant, or this is definitely this mushroom. When you see like 10 different people say, oh yeah, that's what this plant is, and they're all agreeing with each other, you're pretty sure that's what that plant is. So it's like a group community effort, learning all together. Because I've learned that way. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I had to learn somewhere too. And thank God the internet existed, because it would have taken me longer if the internet did not exist. I started learning foraging in like 2006, but the internet was not a baby,
still a
but
baby then. It really was in some ways.
It was in some ways. Like YouTube only came out in 2005, so I couldn't 2006 when I started foraging. Charlie the Unicorn was a brand new thing. That dates me.
I'm not even sure.
Okay, so somebody along the lines is going to listen to this and start laughing, I'm sure.
Okay.
But
I have I'm no good with
internet memes. Yeah.
Normal people's social cues and references, because I exist in such a weird bubble. I've been online since 96.
Yeah.
I can reference old memes. I can reference old movies. I don't know any of the fun stuff.
I reference The Simpsons all the time.
I can
things like that.
Pick up that a little bit.
Yeah. So
we went years without television or living in the US, so I missed a lot of stuff too by not.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't had TV for like 12 years now. So people are like, oh, did you see this commercial? And I'm like, no, I don't watch commercials of anything. Like, I even got rid of Netflix a few years ago. Like, I'm watching DVDs of stuff I bought from 8 years ago.
At the swap meet.
That's pretty much it. Like, I don't need to hear any of that. Right? So yeah, that's hopefully that was a little bit about me if you want to learn.
All right. So what drew you to herbs?
I always tell people what really started me in getting at least a little bit into herbal medicine or herbalism was having my first child. So I had my daughter in 2009, and there's nothing you can safely give an infant. If your infant has problems, has colic or a stomach ache or any kind of issues, you cannot give anything over the counter. There's nothing you could buy at Walmart, the grocery store, anywhere online that is safe to give that child as like a medical thing. You can't and a lot of people in their 20s are like, they have their first kid and they're like, well, what can I give my kid Tylenol if they've got a headache? If that kid's under 2, nope. So I had like a 2-3 week old colicky baby, and I had no idea what to do. And I think I had this book. I think it was Aviva Romm's book, Naturally Healthy Babies and Children.
Oh yeah.
So I had that book. I had that book somebody had given me. And so I started giving my daughter some chamomile tea. and that helped. And I was like, this is awesome. So then I started giving her gripe
What
water
is
when
the
she was having
secret.
yeah, she was having issues with her stomach. Like, grape
Mhm.
water, this is so cool, made with fennel. And I'm like, oh. So I started getting like my eyes opened to herbalism back then. And then I would take walks, I would push her in the stroller and I'd start seeing plants along the side of the road, or I'd start seeing plants a little bit off into the woods and be like, oh, what is that thing? That looks really cool. And I just started wanting to recognize what I was seeing every day and looking it up. I will tell you, I found fiddleheads exactly once, and I need to get my butt out into the woods because it's fiddlehead season right now. If I don't get them now, they're going to be gone. But I found the correct ostrich fern fiddleheads once and ate them. Like I ate one raw and it was delicious. You're supposed to cook them, but I ate one raw and it was good. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to find all of the ferns and just go around and eat all of the ferns. And that's a bad idea because only ostrich ferns are fiddleheads. There's
Yeah.
only like, I think 2 or maybe 3 varieties of edible ferns out of the like 100 something fern varieties there are in this country. And I learned that the hard way by being stupid and eating one and realizing, wow, this is horrible. This is really bitter. This tastes terrible. And then I'm glad I realized that after the first bite or two, because I would have gotten very sick if I had continued trying to eat that anyway.
Just do
now
it anyways.
yeah, don't. If you take a bite of something and it tastes absolutely awful, just stop eating it because it's either the wrong plant or it's in the
Wrong for
wrong
you.
season. It's wrong for you. Yeah, something. If it tastes absolutely horrible, it's not a good thing for you. And then on the opposite spectrum, there's things like daylilies. Daylilies, hemerocallis species, those grow wild, like all over the country. They're seriously bad up here because people call them ditch lilies because you'll be just driving for miles and
Mhm.
see little patches of these bright orange daylilies all over the place, and those are edible.
Yeah, well, everyone wanted to plant them.
Exactly. Well, the sprouts are edible. The flower buds are edible. The roots are edible. I haven't experimented enough with the roots, but I've eaten enough of the sprouts and the buds to know that they are so delicious that I have to stop myself from eating. Like I don't even harvest them that much anymore because every time I harvest them and cook a whole pan of them, I eat the entire flipping pan. And then I end up in the bathroom with diarrhea because daylilies, if you eat too many, will give you diarrhea. And I'm warning anybody, they're absolutely delicious. Just watch out because you should only eat a little bit at a time. Like maybe after they're cooked, like fill the palm of your hand that much. And
that's like eat the serving size.
Eat the serving size. Don't eat the entire frying pan because your kids don't want to eat it. And you're like, well, they're so good and they're natural. So they must be good for me. Yeah, they're going to be good for you for the next 4 hours in the bathroom too.
There you go.
So
learn
just be
something
careful.
every day, people.
Just be careful.
So tell us, what are your herbal goals? Like, what are you thinking about how do you want to expand your herbal foraging career business?
I would like to do more talks in person because I do a lot of presentation type stuff online, and I know that people like watching me and people like interacting with me. And when I do this I teach in-person classes during the summertime, and I get a lot of really great feedback from that. So I know I'm really good at that, and I want to do more of that. I would like to be able to get up and speak in front of a room of people or something and talk about this kind of stuff to people. I'd like to also be teaching more classes if I can, or, build a few. I know I need time to build more classes, but the thing that makes me relax and happy is gardening and farming and being out there in the woods and doing it myself. So like if somebody wanted to they're like, oh, teach a class. Okay, just follow me. Follow me through the woods and don't ask me a million questions and just watch what I do. Go for it.
Sounds like a perfect day to me.
Exactly. It's fantastic, right? I am trying to expand my business a little bit right now. I'm having a shed. I know it's just a little 8x10 shed built behind my garage next week. And that's going to be my production space for my herbal oils because
that's great. That's 80 square feet.
Yeah.
That's
so
pretty big.
I make I make comfrey oil and birch oil, and people absolutely go nuts for both of those. There's a few other infused oils and salves that I make, and like people go crazy for that. So having that little production space once I have that built, I'll be able to sell those things like in a store instead of just from, my own customers
That's
kind of thing.
awesome.
So
Oh, I can't wait. So you
that's
have
my
to let us know
expansion.
when you do that so we can let everyone know that.
Yeah, well, if you
wholesale
follow me on
clients.
social media, I'm sure I'll announce it. I'm gonna once the guy's here starting to build the shed, I'm gonna go out there and record him for a minute. Be like, "Hey,
Nice. Yeah, you got it
what's
right.
going to happen?" Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to expand that. I'm thinking about putting a little greenhouse up, and I'm sitting here. I'm struggling between, do I want to sell my farm and move somewhere else that's warmer or whatever? Or do I want to continue farming and building this place up? And whether I'm going to move or not is God knows when that'll happen or up in the air. It's probably likely someday I will end up moving, but I keep buying more plants. This year, I just bought new trees. I bought spice bush. I just bought another peach tree. I'm buying, when you buy a tree, you're going to be somewhere for a while.
Yeah, this is from someone who's moved a lot and bought a lot of trees.
Yeah.
It's like a bummer leaving them behind. Like we had planted a whole orchard in Florida.
Oh, gosh.
And then we decided to move back up north to be closer to our children. And, it sucks.
Yeah, because you build a relationship with those trees
You don't
and
know
the
what the other
plants.
people are doing to them.
Exactly. I will tell you right now, I absolutely staunchly refuse. I will only sell this when I eventually want to move. I will only sell this place to somebody that's going to keep it up as a farm in some way. Because I'll be like, look, I just spent the last 20 years building this. Instead of you having to go out and build from scratch, you're going to have this
So you could
fully
just
working
build you
homestead.
could sell it as a business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a hawthorn bush growing. It's still only like 3 feet tall, but I bought that hawthorn. I should tell you my hawthorn bush story. I accidentally bought a hawthorn bush from Portugal. I did not mean to buy a hawthorn from Portugal. I went online looking for Crataegus monogyna because I wanted the official, the medicinal hawthorn. And the only place that I could find that was selling any was this one website. And I was like, all right, sweet. I'm going to get this little bush. And it was like $16. The shipping was a little much, but I was like, all right, it's fine. I'm getting exactly what I want. 2 or 3 weeks went by and I realized I hadn't heard anything from it. It hadn't shown up yet. So I checked on my order and the company was in Portugal. So I realized I bought a shrub from overseas. I didn't even know that was legal. I imported a thing from Portugal. So the funny thing is I'm part Portuguese. So I was like, oh, well, this is cool. So it's coming from the homeland, right? So I was thinking there's no way in hell this thing is going to survive. There's no way, because it was like 4 or 5 weeks before it even arrived. And I opened this tiny little tube and I'm thinking I'm going to find a dead stick. And as soon as I reached my hand in there to pull it out of the tube, I just felt this overwhelming, oh my God, I love you. Thank you so much. This is so beautiful. I felt like love and excitement that it was still alive. And it wasn't just me. This plant was like, thank you. Yay, I love you. This is great. So I have a special relationship with that little hawthorn. And she's doing okay. She doesn't love it here, but she's not dying or anything. She's doing okay.
It's like, I thought you didn't tell me there'd be so much snow. Come on,
Yeah.
people. I can't smell the ocean.
And rain and yeah. Well, I mean, I'm like an hour from the ocean. It's
all
not
right, so
terrible.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite part of being an herbalist?
Helping people, I think, is it. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people will say something like that. Like when I help somebody with something and they come back to me, a week or a month or 2 months later and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You helped me or you healed me. You're the reason I'm not sick anymore or whatever.
Yeah.
That feels awesome. Being able to make that kind of, whether it was herbs or diet or whatever it is that I did for that person, it feels really good. Even if it was just like some little product that I made, they're like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. This changed my life. I'm better now. So whatever, me being in that person's life changed their life for the better somehow. And that feels awesome. That's like the whole butterfly effect. I know that if I didn't exist, all these people would still have all these problems. And I'm making a difference. So that feels good.
That's
I
awesome.
like that. I like that.
That's
I do
great.
also like being paid for doing what I absolutely love. So
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
Nice too.
That is fantastic.
And let's remind our listeners, right? Herbalists, healers, aromatherapists, massage therapists, all these other people that that work in the healing industry, they do still have bills to pay.
Yes,
And
you deserve to be paid.
Quit freaking whining and just, we don't go in and try to wheedle down the price when we need a new transmission and come on, man, can't you do me a solid? Like, I'm cool too. Or I basically know everything you're going to tell me anyway. So can you give me a discount?
Well, the one thing I want to tell people,
laugh at you until you go get your tranny someplace else.
The thing I want to impart to people, because a lot of the people that are listening to this are other herbalists or people that are learning herbalism, aspiring herbalists. You need to accept the fact that once you start practicing, and you're comfortable enough, and you're never going to be 100% comfortable. Even I have imposter syndrome all the time. I think everybody does. But once you start helping people and you know that you're actually helping people, don't underestimate yourself. Don't discount yourself. Don't sit there and say, well, this person, they say they don't have any money and I really feel bad and I want to help them. Don't care more about another person than they care about themselves. You can't allow yourself to do that. That's a mental health tip. You cannot care more about them than they care about themselves, because if there's another person that says that they want to heal, but then they won't actually do any of the work or take any of the supplements or change their diet or any of that kind of stuff, they don't actually care, and you're caring more than they are, and that's going to burn you out.
You can't be responsible for other people's finances too. Like
that too. Yeah.
I just bought a new car. I can't pay my payment plan this month. I'm like, well, wait. I don't know why that's my problem. Enjoy the car, but you owe me money. So it's like
people will come to me and be like, I'm on disability. I don't make this much money. I only can do this. Can you just please help me? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I have a mortgage to pay. I also have bills I need to pay. I'm not asking outrage. I'm not telling you need to pay me $2,000 for, to talk to me for 15 minutes. That I'm not outrageous by any means, but you absolutely deserve to be paid for the services that you're rendering. And if you're making good quality herbal products, think about that. You deserve to be paid for those products. Don't undercut yourself. Don't say, well, I'll sell you this thing for $5, because that's like saying you don't believe your product's going to work.
Well, I mean, we know if you go, I always tell students, like, look, go to like an Ulta or Sephora. There are people spending $90 on a lipstick.
Yeah.
Look,
exactly.
You can sell your salve or your tincture for what it's worth.
Exactly.
Because people will choose. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Everyone's running around with $1,000 phone, or I used to complain about having to pay $11 a month just to have a landline just in there and long distance fees. I think that's probably cheaper than what we pay now. But the reality is it is a choice. People are making choices, and cool.
They choose what they're going to spend their money on, and if they want to change their health, and without a doubt you can help them, and you're telling them I can help you, they're going to pay you what you're asking.
Absolutely.
You could do it with integrity and honesty and fairness. But you saying
you can be fair to yourself and other people.
Be fair, exactly. Be fair to yourself, not just fair to the other. Don't undercut yourself. A lot of times, somebody put it like this, because somebody was telling me some of my classes. They're like, your prices of your classes are way too low. I did actually raise my prices on some of my classes recently, so I'll still do a sale once in a while. But I raised the prices because this person was telling, look, if you see an herbalism class and it's $20. Do you think that is a good deal? That's a great class? Or do you look at the one that's $200 and say, oh, you know what? I bet I'm going to learn a lot more in that class that's $200 than the $20 one. Don't undercut yourself. If you get to the point where you're teaching people, they'd be like, well, okay, I took this thing for $20 and I learned everything there is to know about all kinds of herbalism because this person didn't believe in theirself enough to charge a fair price. That kind of screws both of you.
Yeah, right, for sure. So will you let everyone know before we close up where they can find you again?
I am at blacksunfarmct.com. That is my main website that has links to everything. There's a thing that's for social media on there. My YouTube link is on there. I'm on TikTok. I'm at the original Meal Chan on TikTok, which is a weird name. I know everything. I'm Black Sun Farm everywhere else. If you look for Black Sun Farm, I'm it. But I started TikTok like 2.5 years ago for fun. Like I just was like, whatever, I'm going to throw a name up there. And then all of a sudden I got all these followers. And by the time you end up with a ton of followers, you can't change your name because then nobody will know who you are anymore. So I've got a different name
You
on
gotta mix
TikTok.
it up a little bit, keep people
Basically,
guessing.
yeah.
Like,
and the funny thing is I have two Instagram profiles. One is Black Sun Farm and the other one is at the original Meal Chan, because that was like my nickname, but that was just, it's personal, nothing, whatever it is, BS that I feel like posting that day. Whereas the Black Sun Farm one is like, I'm actually going to teach you something. This is something about this plant or this remedy and yada, yada, teaching about different foraging skills and things like that, and herbalism. So, yeah,
we're definitely
I'm
going
there.
to give you a follow.
Yeah, thank you. And YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. If you Google Black Sun Farm, the only other Black Sun Farm in the country is someplace in Delaware, and I think they've got like 20 likes. And I've got like 80,000 followers on Facebook. So look for the one with a lot of people looking at it.
look at the one that everybody likes. No.
Yeah, I know. That makes me sound wicked egotistical. I'm almost at 100,000 followers on TikTok now, so that feels pretty good.
That's
I'm pretty
awesome.
close. Yeah, and YouTube's getting better, and I have a mailing list. So there's on my blacksunfarmct.com website, there's a link you can click that gives you my free foraging guide. And I can give you the link for that if you want to put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So send that to me, and we'll put, when we put the information about the podcast,
so people can click on that.
People can click to all your social links.
Because I email people a lot too. I email my list, my mailing list probably at least once or twice a week. And you're learning stuff from me. Plus you're getting to know like, hey, Amelia likes this really cool thing. Maybe I should look at it,
Yeah. Awesome. So, that's great. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And make sure you send me all of your links, because I want to make sure that when we put this up, everyone can find you. I think that's really important.
Yep.
And so just thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know this is kind of a new little endeavor we're doing. This is actually me getting out of my comfort zone. I actually don't like doing stuff like this. So I'm learning.
That's good. I can talk people's ear off for a couple of hours, so I'm good.
We should definitely book you again. So
totally.
Keep in touch. Let me know new things that are coming. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to end this. So I think it'll end everything at the same time. So
that's fine.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. This is Demetria Clark from Heart of Herbs Herbal School and our little podcast saying good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Interested in learning more? Visit heartofherbs.com and enroll using coupon code PODCAST to save 20%. The content provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. It's always recommended to consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or health regime, especially if you have an existing health condition. Any of the financial information and advice for starting or maintaining an herbal business is just that, information. It's not used to be a guideline on how you should run your business. Contact the appropriate professionals to help you to have a successful business.